June 6, 1944. 0528 hours. Normandy coast, sector opposite Omaha Beach. Inside the concrete bunker, the air is cold and damp, thick with the smell of wet sandbags and machine oil. Oberjefreighter Carl Weiss presses his shoulder against the firing slit and squints toward the sea. Dawn is still struggling to break through the low cloud, the horizon a dull gray smear where sky and water dissolve into one. The Atlantic looks wrong. Not violent, not stormy, too calm. You can almost hear the bunker breathe, water dripping somewhere behind him, the soft scrape of boots on concrete, a man coughing in the darkness. Weiss adjusts the MG-42's belt with numb fingers. He has done this motion 100 times in training. Feed, check, lock. The weapon feels familiar, comforting, reliable, unlike the rumors. Outside, waves slap against the obstacles planted in the shallows, wooden stakes tipped with mines, steel hedgehogs half submerged, teeth waiting for a body to stumble into them. The Atlantic Wall, they called it, beton und Stahl, concrete and steel, supposed to make this coast invulnerable. Weiss has been awake since before 0300. No sleep, no orders, just waiting. Someone behind him mutters, another alarm. A voice heavy with fatigue, not fear. They've had dozens of them over the past months. False starts, feints, bombers overhead, then nothing. The officers always say the real invasion will come at Pas-de-Calais. Not here. Not this quiet stretch of coast defended by the 716th Infantry Division. Static troops, older men, wounded veterans, boys barely out of training. Weiss is 21. At 0530, the sea begins to move. At first it's subtle, dark shapes barely distinguishable from the swell. Weiss leans closer, his helmet brushing concrete. He blinks, wipes condensation from the slit with his sleeve. Shapes multiply. Dozens, then hundreds. Landing craft. His breath catches just for a moment, not panic, confusion. Raids don't look like this. Raids come fast, hit hard, then vanish. These shapes aren't vanishing. They're advancing, steady, methodical, as if the ocean itself has decided to march. Weiss, someone whispers, cease dudas. Do you see that? He does not answer. At 0552, the first naval shells arrive. The bunker shudders as if struck by a giant fist. Dust rains from the ceiling. The concrete groans, low, deep, animal. A second impact slams into the hillside behind them, then a third, closer. The Atlantic Wall is under fire. This is no air raid. This is different. He can feel it in his chest. Outside, the sea erupts. Columns of water shoot skyward as shells land among the obstacles. The calm is gone, replaced by thunder so loud it erases thought. Weiss grips the machine gun's handles, knuckles white, teeth clenched. The Unteroffizier shouts orders, voice cracking through the din. Bereit machen, Führer erst auf Befehl. Get ready, fire only on command. Through the slit, Weiss sees men in the landing craft now, dark figures hunched under helmets, rifles clutched tight. The boats are still too far. The MG-42 could reach them, yes, but doctrine matters. Discipline matters. Ammunition is limited. Targets must be certain. The shells keep coming. Somewhere to the left, a neighboring casemate takes a direct hit. The blast flashes white, then black smoke boils upward. The sound arrives a half-second later, violent, final. Someone swears. Someone crosses himself. Weiss swallows hard. This was not supposed to happen here. At 0600, the naval barrage lifts slightly, not stopping, just shifting inland. The sudden change is worse than the noise. The silence between explosions leaves room for realization to creep in. The boats are closer now, very close. Weiss can see faces. American faces. Young, pale, tight with fear and determination. Some are vomiting over the sides. Others stare straight ahead, jaws locked, as if afraid that looking away will shatter them. A flare goes up, green, then another. The unteroffizier raises his arm. Fewer fray. The MG-42 comes alive in Weiss's hands, its mechanical scream tearing through the bunker. The recoil is steady, brutal, familiar. Tracers streak across the water, stitching the surface, ripping into the first wave of landing craft. Men fall. Some don't even make it out of the boats. For a moment, a terrible, fleeting moment, training takes over. The Atlantic wall works. The machine gun does exactly what it was built to do. Weiss feels the awful, intoxicating certainty of control. Then return fire begins. Naval guns walk their shells closer. A near miss slams into the bunker's face, blasting concrete fragments through the firing slit. Weiss recoils, blood warm on his cheek. The gun keeps firing. He doesn't remember pulling the trigger. Smoke fills the chamber, the air tastes of cordite and dust. Someone is screaming now, not outside, inside. Weiss glances to his right and sees a loader slumped against the wall, helmet gone, eyes open but empty, just like that. And still the boats keep coming. Wave after wave, not slowing, not retreating. Weiss fires until the barrel glows, until the belt runs dry. He reaches for another, hands shaking for the first time. Through the smoke, through the noise, a single thought breaks through the chaos, sharp and undeniable. This is not a raid. This is the invasion. And it has only just begun. The second belt feeds into the MG-42 with a metallic snap, but something has changed. Carl Weiss feels it immediately. The rhythm is still there, the familiar hammering cadence of the gun, but the certainty is gone. The sea is no longer a single target. It is chaos. Smoke, men everywhere, some running, some crawling, some not moving at all. And still they keep coming. Outside the bunker, the tide carries bodies toward the shore, tangling them in wire and obstacles. Weiss forces himself not to look too long. The unteroffizier's voice cuts through the din again, hoarse now, desperate. Kurs sturs, munition sparin. Short bursts, save ammunition. Weiss obeys, firing in controlled bursts, walking the tracers across the sand as the first Americans spill from the landing craft. Many fall. Too many. But others reach the shingle, collapsing behind steel hedgehogs, behind corpses, behind anything that offers the illusion of cover. Illusion, that word will matter later. At 06:15, the first German field telephone rings. No one answers it. The line crackles uselessly on the wall, the receiver swinging slightly from the vibration of nearby explosions. Communications, so precise on paper, are unraveling in real time. Cables cut by bombardment. Radios smashed. Runners too afraid or already dead to move between positions. Each bunker is becoming its own small war. Weiss reloads again. His ears ring constantly now, a high-pitched whine beneath the thunder. He no longer feels the recoil in his shoulder. His body has narrowed its focus to one task: fire, reload, fire again. Then the Americans begin to do something unexpected. They stop coming straight at the bunker. Small groups peel away from the beach, edging left and right, slipping into folds in the terrain Weiss had barely noticed before. Dry stream beds, shallow gullies, shadows cast by the bluffs. Sievertel and Sich, someone mutters. They're spreading out. This wasn't in the drills. The Atlantic Wall was designed to break a frontal assault, to grind it into blood and confusion at the waterline. It was not built to fight dozens of small, determined units crawling uphill under fire, disappearing, reappearing closer each minute. A shell lands directly above the bunker, the impact flattening Weiss against the gun. The lights flicker and die. Darkness rushes in, thick and complete. For several seconds, the only illumination comes from the muzzle flash of the MG-42, turning faces into brief, ghostly masks. Stop, stop, the unteroffizier shouts. Fewer Einstellen. Cease fire. Weiss lets go of the trigger, chest heaving. Silence, relative silence, crashes down on them, broken by distant gunfire and the scream of wounded men outside. Someone strikes a match. Another man lights a lantern, its glow weak and yellow. The bunker looks smaller now, claustrophobic. Cracked concrete veins the walls where the bombardment has tested their faith in German engineering. The unteroffizier leans into the firing slit, binoculars pressed to his eyes. His face drains of color. "They're up the bluff," he says quietly. Weiss doesn't understand at first. Then he crawls forward and looks. American soldiers, mud-streaked, exhausted, alive, are climbing. Some use ropes. Some scramble on hands and knees. Naval gunfire shifts again, smashing German positions further inland, cutting off the possibility of reinforcement. This was supposed to be the killing zone. Instead, it's becoming a corridor. At 0640, a new sound joins the battle. A sharp crack, different from the thunder of naval shells or the chatter of machine guns. Rifle fire close. Weiss ducks instinctively as a bullet snaps through the firing slit, shattering the lantern. Glass explodes outward, plunging the bunker back into darkness. "They're flanking us," someone shouts. The word hits harder than any shell. Flanking. That means Americans are no longer just in front of them. They're beside them, above them. Inside the bunker, panic creeps in, not screaming, not yet, but subtle, corrosive. Men glance at each other too often. Hands tremble as they check magazines. Someone whispers about surrender, then falls silent when the unteroffizier glares at him. Orders arrive late, garbled, carried by a runner bleeding from a head wound. "Hold position," he gasps. "Panzer reserves delayed." Delayed. Weiss had been told the tanks would counterattack within hours, that the beach would be sealed off, that the Allies would be thrown back into the sea. He looks out again. More landing craft, more men, more tanks now nosing through the surf, Sherman hulls grinding against sand and steel. This is the moment the realization begins to take shape, not fully, not yet, but enough to chill him. The Atlantic Wall was meant to stop an invasion. But invasions don't stop just because you planned for them. At 0710, the first American grenade drops through the bunker's ventilation shaft. The explosion is small but devastating in the confined space. Weiss is thrown sideways, his helmet ringing like a bell. Smoke fills the chamber, acrid and choking. Someone is shouting his name, or maybe he's shouting theirs. When his vision clears, he sees the unteroffizier slumped against the wall, blood soaking his collar. Command has evaporated in a heartbeat. Boots scrape outside the bunker now. English voices, close, calm, professional. Weiss grips his rifle, heart pounding so hard it feels like it might tear free. The illusion of control, the idea that concrete and steel could hold back history, has shattered. The war has come inside the bunker. And in the darkness, Carl Weiss understands something terrifying. They are no longer defending the Atlantic Wall. They are trapped inside it. The boots stop just outside the bunker entrance. For a moment, no one moves. Carl Weiss crouches low, rifle pressed tight to his chest, finger resting against the trigger guard instead of the trigger itself. His training screams at him to be ready, but something deeper, older, tells him to wait. The air inside the bunker is thick with dust and cordite. Every breath burns. A voice calls out in English, calm, controlled, not shouted. "German soldiers inside, throw out your weapons." No threats, no insults, just a statement of fact. Someone inside the bunker sobs once sharply, then clamps a hand over his mouth. Weiss doesn't look to see who it is. He already knows. The youngest, always the youngest. Another voice closer now. "You're surrounded." Weiss almost laughs. Surrounded. An hour ago, that word would have been unthinkable. The Atlantic Wall was supposed to face outward toward the sea, all its teeth pointed in one direction. Now the danger is everywhere. A second grenade clatters down the concrete steps at the rear entrance. It doesn't explode, a dud, or a warning. The message is clear. The unteroffizier is dead. No orders are coming. The field telephone is a broken ornament on the wall. The war has shrunk to this bunker, these men, this choice. Weiss glances around, 3 others still able to fight. One wounded badly, breathing in wet, bubbling gasps. Ammunition low. Machine gun barrel warped from heat. No escape route that isn't covered. He thinks of the months spent pouring concrete here, shoveling sand, setting wire. Of the speeches about Fortress Europe. Of maps where arrows always stopped at the coastline. Outside, an American helmet edges into view, just visible through the doorway. A hand follows, then another. The soldier doesn't rush. He doesn't need to. The wall has already failed. Weiss, someone whispers behind him, was Machen were. What do we do? Weiss doesn't answer immediately. He is listening to the sounds beyond the bunker. More voices now, more boots, metal clanking as equipment shifts. The Americans are moving past them, not around them. Past. They are no longer the focus of the battle. That realization lands harder than fear. It is one thing to be attacked. It is another to be irrelevant. Slowly, Weiss lowers his rifle. The sound it makes when it touches the concrete floor seems impossibly loud. One by one, the others follow. Hands rise, helmets come off. The American soldier at the door finally steps fully inside, weapon raised but steady. He looks exhausted. His uniform is soaked, streaked with blood and seawater. His eyes flick to the wounded man, then back to Weiss. Medics, he calls out over his shoulder. Just like that. Weiss sits down against the wall, his legs giving out beneath him. He feels strangely light. As if something heavy has been lifted from his chest. Shame follows immediately after, relief and shame tangled together. Outside, the battle continues, but it sounds different now. Less distant, more chaotic. Rifle fire crackles from above the bluffs. Artillery thumps inland. The beach is no longer the edge of the world. As they are led out of the bunker, Weiss blinks against the sudden daylight. Smoke drifts across the slope in thick curtains. The air smells of salt, blood, and burning fuel. Wrecked landing craft litter the shoreline below, but beyond them, beyond the carnage, more ships wait offshore, endless and orderly. He sees it now, the depth, the scale. This wasn't a gamble. It was a calculation. American engineers are already clearing obstacles under fire. Naval guns continue to pound German positions with clinical precision. Men move forward in small units, communicating with hand signals, radios, confidence. Weiss looks back at the bunker as they pass it. It looks smaller than it did this morning. Cracked, scarred, bypassed. The Atlantic Wall has not been breached everywhere. Many bunkers are still fighting. Some will fight all day. Some will fight until nightfall. But the truth has already taken root, spreading faster than any army. You don't need to destroy a wall if you can go around it. By mid-morning, Weiss and dozens of other prisoners are herded into a shallow draw inland, guarded by soldiers who barely glance at them anymore. The focus has shifted east and west, toward Caen, toward Cherbourg, toward objectives that stretch far beyond the beach. A German officer nearby mutters bitterly, "Des war." That's it. Weiss doesn't correct him. He understands what the officer really means. Not that the war is over, but that something irreversible has happened. The Atlantic Wall was meant to stop history at the shoreline. Instead, history stepped over it, climbed past it, and kept moving. And as Weiss watches American tanks rumble inland, their engines growling with purpose, he realizes that June 6, 1944 is not just the day the Allies arrived in Normandy. It is the day the war stopped coming to Germany and started moving through it. By 09:30, The beach is no longer the battlefield everyone feared it would be. It is something else now, a rear area. Carl Weiss sits on the damp ground with his back against a hedgerow, wrists sore from the pressure of hastily tied field dressings used as restraints. He watches American traffic flow past him in a steady, unstoppable stream. Infantry units moving forward in squads, engineers carrying satchel charges and wire cutters, medics jogging, bent low, red crosses bright against smoke-darkened uniforms. No one looks at the prisoners for long. They are already behind the war. The noise has changed. The thunder of naval guns has faded, replaced by the sharper, more purposeful sounds of fighting inland, artillery firing in measured patterns, the staccato crack of small arms echoing from beyond the bluffs. Somewhere to the east, tanks engage, metal on metal, the deep boom of main guns punctuating the air. Weiss turns his head slowly, following the movement. Sherman tanks grind past, their tracks chewing through hedges and stone walls as if they were made of paper. Infantry cling to the sides, riding forward, faces set with a mix of exhaustion and grim determination. White stars flash briefly through the dust before vanishing again. This was supposed to be impossible. German doctrine said the Allies could not land, reinforce, and advance all at once. That if they came, they would bog down on the beaches, crushed between obstacles and fire. That armor would never make it ashore in strength. Yet here it is, rolling past him, inland bound. A German Feldwebel nearby shakes his head slowly, murmuring numbers under his breath, divisions, landing craft, ships, calculations that no longer matter. He has seen enough to understand that this is not a temporary penetration. It is a front. Weiss's thoughts drift back to the night before, to the quiet, to the confidence, to the belief that tomorrow would be just another alert, another false alarm, another day of waiting behind concrete walls. That world feels impossibly distant now. Around noon, American officers gather near a crossroads not far from where the prisoners sit. Maps are spread across the hood of a jeep. Fingers trace routes inland. Orders are given and immediately carried out. There is no shouting, no hesitation. Momentum has taken hold. Weiss watches an American captain point toward a village on the horizon, its church steeple rising above the trees. The gesture is casual, almost bored. That village had been marked on German maps as a defensive anchor, a place to regroup, a place where reserves would counterattack and restore the line. Now it is simply a waypoint. The realization settles fully now, heavy and unavoidable. The Atlantic Wall did not fail because the Germans lacked courage. The men in the bunkers fought. Some are still fighting. Many are dead. It failed because it was designed for a war that no longer existed. Concrete could not adapt. Fixed guns could not maneuver. Static defenses could not respond to an enemy that learned, adjusted, and moved faster than doctrine allowed. Weiss looks down at his hands. They are still shaking, though the fear has passed. What remains is something colder. Clarity. By late afternoon, the sky clears. Sunlight breaks through the clouds, illuminating a coastline transformed. Ships stretch to the horizon, an armada so vast it seems unreal. Artificial harbors will come. Roads will follow, airfields, supply dumps, entire cities of war assembled piece by piece. This is not an invasion force. It is a relocation. As the prisoners are finally marched inland toward a temporary holding area, Weiss steals one last look back at the sea. The Atlantic glitters innocently now, as if nothing extraordinary has happened. But everything has. Behind him lies a shattered wall of concrete and belief. Ahead lies a war Germany can no longer contain, only endure. And somewhere deep inside, Carl Weiss knows that years from now, when people ask where the war truly turned, where it became inevitable, his mind will return to this morning. To a calm sea at dawn. To dark shapes on the horizon. To the moment, the Atlantic Wall began facing the wrong direction. Evening settles slowly over Normandy. By 1900, the light has softened, the smoke thinning into pale ribbons that drift lazily across fields now churned by boots and tracks. The fighting hasn't stopped. It never truly does. But it has moved farther inland, pulling the sound of war away from the sea that birthed it. Carl Weiss marches with the other prisoners along a narrow country road, flanked by American guards who look as exhausted as the men they escort. No one speaks much. There is no need. The day has said enough. They pass through a village that no longer resembles the one marked on German maps. Windows shattered, roof tiles scattered like broken teeth. A church wall bears a fresh hole where a shell punched through stone that had stood for centuries. War doesn't knock, Weiss thinks, it enters. They are halted in an orchard ringed with hastily strung wire. The guards gesture for them to sit. Some collapse where they stand. Others lower themselves carefully, as if afraid that once they stop moving, they might not be able to start again. Weiss sits beneath an apple tree, its branches heavy with unripe fruit. One apple lies bruised at his feet, knocked loose by artillery earlier in the day. He turns it slowly with his boot, watching ants crawl over the broken skin. Somewhere beyond the hedgerows, an American radio crackles to life. Music spills out, soft, tinny, unreal. For a moment it feels obscene. Then Weiss realizes something. The Americans are already thinking about tomorrow. Supply schedules, unit rotations, objectives beyond Normandy. The war for them is expanding outward, not collapsing inward. June 6th was not an ending, it was an opening. A German officer nearby stares at the ground, jaw clenched. "They'll counterattack," he mutters. "They must." Weiss doesn't answer. He has seen too much today to believe in must. He thinks back to the bunker, the narrow slit of sea, the confidence of concrete walls, the illusion that if you built something strong enough, history would break against it. But history doesn't break. It flows. It finds weak points. It finds new paths. And when it cannot be stopped, it simply goes around. As darkness deepens, American aircraft roar overhead, heading inland in endless streams. Not bombers fleeing enemy fighters, but transport planes, reconnaissance craft, fighters flying lazy patrols over territory already being claimed. The sky, too, has changed sides. Weiss leans back against the tree and closes his eyes. When he opens them again, he imagines the map of Europe, not the one in headquarters with arrows and symbols, but a living one. Normandy glowing now, a spreading stain of movement and supply and inevitability. This is how wars truly turn, not in a single explosion, not in a single surrender, but in a day when one side realizes it can no longer decide where the war will be fought. The Atlantic Wall was meant to be the end of the road. Instead, it became a doorway. And on June 6, 1944, the war did not stop at the coast. It stepped ashore. The Atlantic Wall still stands in places today. Cracked concrete, rusted steel, bunkers half buried by sand and time. But on June 6, 1944, it stopped being a wall. It became a relic. For the men who waited inside it that morning, soldiers like Carl Weiss, the realization did not arrive all at once. It came in fragments, in landing craft that did not turn back, in radios that went silent, in American soldiers climbing where doctrine said no one could climb. The wall did not collapse in a single moment. It was bypassed, outflanked, ignored. And that was worse. Because walls are built to stop enemies. They are not built to stop momentum. By nightfall, the beaches were no longer the edge of the war. They were its supply line. By the end of the week, Normandy was no longer a defensive zone. It was a staging ground for something far larger. Germany would fight on, hard, desperately, skillfully. But after June 6th, it would fight a war it could no longer control the shape of. The invasion did not end the war, but it decided where the war would be fought and where it would end. On a quiet coast at dawn, inside concrete walls meant to last 1,000 years, the future arrived. And it did not ask permission.